and some differentiations that you want to understand between all of them, and how important they become in ensuring that you get to a closing table after you've already negotiated the contract, okay? Before we get into that, though, a couple of things from our association NAC board president. The one thing that seems to continue to confuse people, and I don't understand why, is the need to have everything in writing. This came up in our office in terms of, well, we talked on the phone, they said they would take, yeah, that doesn't count, okay? So another thing, and this is a legitimate misunderstanding, is that you're communicating via email between two parties. If I represented the seller, and I put out there in an email that the seller would approve if they made these changes. If they email me back saying, well, they agree to those changes, we don't have a deal. These are two individual agents speaking that hasn't been approved by the two parties of the contract. That's very important, and that happens quite a bit. I thought we had a deal. No, you don't. The buyer and the seller have to sign a document to make those changes. So that's one. Another problem that's come up is broker not presenting offers unless specific instructions are agreed and followed. In other words, the broker has an obligation to present all offers. Okay? Now, realize that their relationship is with the seller, and in some cases they say, well, if you don't do that, I'm not presenting the offer. Well, you don't have that choice, Mr. Broker. You will present the offer. It is part of your fiduciary responsibility. One of the things that we're going to do, yes?
I don't know if they really do or don't.
Well, you don't. That's another thing. You can't insist on, having them, you can't ask, would you do me a favor? If they're rejecting the offer, would you just have them cross it off and sign it? That used to be fairly common. It's less so now. So there's an awful lot of interpersonal trust that needs to happen, and that's unfortunate because in some cases, I'm sure that there have been cases in which your offer was never presented. Bringing me to a new thing that I want to put together for our office. There's some basic rules that we should have as an industry that seems to have been forgotten. So what I want to do is put together a group of individuals who simply say things like, all agents must attend an inspection. All agents must attend a closing or have a designated replacement. Because what's happening, we had a closing yesterday, but agent didn't show up.
Really?
Yeah, and it's happened quite a bit. It's happening with more and more frequency. So I don't really understand what the agent feels their role is in a real estate transaction, but a little clarification would be probably good as it relates to that.
I mean, okay, so we bought our house like 5 years ago, and we were the ones that arranged the inspection. I mean, we had a lame real estate agent.
Yeah, obviously.
But there was never any question that he would show. I mean, I never thought that the agent would show. So is that recent that you were supposed to?
No. I mean, I've never sold a house without being at the inspection.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just protocol. If you're truly representing the interests of the buyer and or seller, you need to do those basic. There's a certain basic level of service that a full service broker covers. Now, there's a lot of limited service companies out there that, you're right, they will not do any negotiation with you. They will not. They charge a small amount and they do very little.
That's what we did, yeah. That was wrong for
very
us.
little.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was more a financing thing. So, but the seller's agent wasn't there either. I don't know. The seller lived next door, so.
Well, the seller's agent isn't there.
Okay.
I mean, it's a little uncomfortable to have a seller's agent show up. The buyer wants to have unlimited access. The buyer wants to be able to talk freely and openly, and sometimes having a seller's agent there is not ideal. Yeah. All right. Varying transaction fees. Now, this is an issue that is in our industry popping up quite a bit, and it is whereby we have a $250 transaction fee, broker compliance fee. We have some people that collect $3.99. They can keep the $149 and turn over the $250 to us. That could potentially be a fair housing issue. So we're looking at, our company is looking at whether in fact that is appropriate, and that practice may come to an end very soon. So, and that's not uncommon in some industries. I know of an agent that charges $7.95. She keeps whatever the difference between $7.95 and $250 is, $450 she keeps, and the company gets the rest. All right, so let's talk about obviously just the words themselves. Kind of give you an indication of what's what. An addendum, of course, is to add to the conditions of the agreement. An amendment is to to amend those that particular agreement. A clause is a particular and separate article, stipulation, or proviso in a contract, bill, or contract. So we're going to talk about clauses here for a little while. First of all, when you do a clause, remember this, and when you get good at this, it's very helpful. You want to ask the 5 whys. In a clause, it should cover what, where, when, why, and what if. Okay? So, amendments that ask particular issues to be fixed can be difficult on the transaction due to the mortgage company insisting of fixing the item prior to close. For instance, right now you have situations in which FHA requires, if there are to be any issues that are found at the inspection, are to be done prior to closing. That's an FHA requirement. It's not the requirement of a conventional loan. It's one of the reasons why sellers prefer a conventional loan versus FHA. If they don't have someone telling them they must do these things before they can sell their house. Another thing as it relates to that, the difference is as it relates to the appraisal. The appraisal on an FHA, if it comes in, you realize that stays with the property for 6 months. So if it stays with the property for 6 months, that means that is the appraised value. If you get another offer coming in, that's the appraised value. Okay? That's not the case with a conventional mortgage. All right. So, amendment says basement has water issues. Seller to have estimate done on basement waterproofing and provide credit in that amount to the purchaser. Okay? That's a problem. The mortgage company may very well say, well, no. You have water in the basement's a fairly significant issue. That's not agreeable. We need that repaired prior to the issuance of a mortgage. So you've got to be careful when you're doing amendments, which this is, to the contract, and it's regarding inspection issues. There are certain items that the mortgage company will get involved in and say, wait a second, we're not loaning on this property until that's taken care of. Okay? That's even with a conventional loan. Okay? So you need to be careful in terms of drafting amendments based on inspection items. Another one would be purchaser to receive an $1,800 credit for mold in the attic. No. Yeah, the mortgage company's going to say, whoa, time out. There's mold in the attic. We're not making the loan based upon that. You need to remediate that. Okay? So recognize that as a buyer's agent, you want to craft to purchase an amendment that is such that will take care of or not cause the mortgage company to, question and require certain things to be done. And we'll get into what those are. Okay? Here's an example of a proper amendment. I always use these phrases. Based upon the inspection done on the above named property, the purchaser requests the buyer to 1. Replace the broken sink in the master bathroom. 2. Add a handrail on the back porch to code. And 3. Replace the garbage disposal in the kitchen. So those are things that I went through with my buyer and we decided, there are a number of other items, but these are actually not working and or a safety issue, and I want you to take care of those. Okay? Not only that, but if you follow the what, where, when, why, and what if, repairs are to be completed prior to closing, that's the when, by a licensed contractor, protecting my buyer, with receipts supplied to the buyer. So I know it's been done, and it's been done, and it's been done by a contractor that I can trust. What if failure to complete these repairs in a timely manner may result in a delay of closing until such time as the repairs are completed? Okay? Very thorough. Now, RPAs require, of course, the option for the buyer to move forward. If the seller, if they get this, and the seller says, I'm not doing any of those, my buyer can still move forward with the contract. Okay? This isn't a deal killer.
It's a request.
It's a request.
Okay.
Yeah. It's more than a request, because quite honestly, my buyer's gonna really kind of insist on these things being done. But I'm being nice, we're requesting it, and so on and so forth. And generally, if this is agreeable, then they can simply sign it. I don't have a problem with a mortgage company on these. These are fairly simple issues. And they would in fact make sure that they gave the a loan, with these minor things.
Do you have copies of that?
I can get you a copy of this, yeah. Yeah, I always did, based upon the inspection done on the above named property, the purchaser requests, and then go into what he want. Okay? That was my language forever. Based on the inspection done on the above named property, purchaser requests this to happen. So that's a good thing to know. Now remember, if there are, I can make sure you have that. If there are issues that are of a mold, of a water in the basement issue, you want to get those things resolved, in a way in which you are not causing alarm to the mortgage company. Okay? Now, let's take a look at the next page, if you would. I didn't give you anything, so you will. And it'll be here. Okay, everybody got an ink pen and a piece of paper. I want you to redo this first one. Seller and buyer agree to have the roof fixed. You see, I've seen this. I've seen this on an amendment.
I've done it.
Yeah. So, not appropriate, not good. Rewrite it. Take about 3 or 4 minutes and rewrite. You want the buyer and the seller have agreed. They've talked it out and said, hey, okay, we'll do that. That's the only thing you want? Yes. I need you to write out what you would write for the amendment. Just take a minute.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So when you say have the roof fixed, is it just a leak in the roof? Is the
It's a good
roof
question. Let's say
completely
replace.
bad?
Let's say replace. Yeah. It's one of the reasons why this is not a very good amendment.
Right, yeah, because I did it and I don't know how you read it.
And it's your buyer.
Yes, I got it. Buyer agrees to accept X amount of dollars for, well, I don't want to talk about the roof because that would affect the bank, so I don't want to even talk about it.
Unless it was going to be fixed. Yeah.
Okay.
If it's going to be fixed prior to closing, they don't care. They don't-
Okay, so seller and buyer agrees.
Well, write it down.
Seller agrees, okay.
All right, in the interest of brevity, okay, it can read something like this. Both parties agree that the home listed above will have a roof completed, a new roof completed or installed by a licensed contractor prior to closing. In the event this project is not completed prior to closing, the buyer shall have the right to delay closing until such time that it is completed. So that's fairly simple thing. Now, what may very well happen is that you will have the appraiser go back out and inspect a second time to ensure that that was done, because that's fairly significant. Seller agrees that the weather prohibits the pool from being inspected, and the buyer agrees to have the pool inspected after the weather clears. If there are any problems with the pool, the seller will repair it. All right, so if I wrote this, I'm doing two things. I'm assuming the seller will be happy with whatever repair I come up with, which is a wrong assumption. And I also assume that my buyer is willing to take on the responsibility of accepting the roof as is without any recourse, really, except legally, if the guy doesn't do it, right? So, buyer and seller agree to put $5,000 in escrow to be held by the title company until such time that the pool can be opened for the purchaser to evaluate and inspect. In the event the pool is satisfactory, the escrow dollars shall be refunded to the seller within 15 days of a satisfactory inspection. Any repairs required will be used, the $5,000 will be used that is currently in escrow. Where?
Did you get some more classes?
No, but you just do it long enough, you know that these are things you just gotta cover. And hopefully you've got somebody who's not a Nimrod on the other end, because that's never a guarantee. So, I mean, you might be the one getting this as the seller's agent, right? Oh gosh, yeah, this is not gonna work. Now, the buyer is assuming a lot of responsibility here. They're just gonna go ahead and close and hope that the pool's good, and if it doesn't, they're gonna have to, the buyer, or the seller has agreed to repair it. Well, you know what's gonna happen, and Murphy's Law will say, hey, I wasn't like that when I owned it. You must have done something, who knows? Now you got an issue.
You have a black hole in the middle of your yard.
Yeah, not a good situation. Yeah. Question, go. Purchaser and seller agreed they will extend the occupancy period by 10 days for a total of 40 days. Now, this was written in a situation which were already agreed upon. All right? So this is an amendment that changes the terms. We're now adding 10 days to the occupancy period. Okay? Now, one of the things that you want to be careful of, we're seeing it more often. I'm the victim of it right now. We have a closing on a house that I own that was due tomorrow. That was based upon the house that I currently own being vacated by my tenant as of today, because they were going to close today. They now are not closing today, and they are now going to close Friday. I'm going to push my closing back to Tuesday. That's a real problem if I'm coming in from out of the state, out of the country. It's a real problem. So when that's the case, you want to encourage and make sure that there is a hefty penalty if the closing does not happen on a certain date, or an occupancy doesn't happen on a certain date. So in other words, people say, hey, I'm going to give them 30 days occupancy. What happens if they don't get out? Okay? So what you do, you double the occupancy rate. In the event the property is not vacated at the end of the occupancy period, both parties agreed that the seller shall pay the buyer, instead of $90 a day, it's $180 a day. They have now a huge incentive to get out of that house.
Right, down at the end of the hall, it's 116.
What I would do in this case is both parties agree to extend the occupancy period by 10 days for a total of 40 days, not to exceed May 13th, 2017. In the event the property is not vacated by that time, the seller agrees to pay a premium of blank per day after that occupancy period.
So these are amendments that we're gonna do if this happens.
Yeah, John Jones calls you and says, hey, Les, guess what? Yeah, their house, they bought a new house and it's being built. It's not gonna be done, they need 10 more days. Seller says, okay. They're agreeable to it and so on and so forth. What happens if it's 28 days, especially if it's a new build? You learn right away. A new build that was supposed to be done May 15th is now gonna be due July 30th. That happens all the time. If I've got a problem in terms of occupancy, I need to make sure that I am penalizing them for not getting out when they said they would.
So in that case, would there be extra money just in case put in escrow?
Yes.
Or,
Yeah, you would.
so that would be part of the language also?
Exactly.
Right?
Yep, to increase the occupancy charge to amount held by the escrow company to. So that's a good point. So you want to cover everything. In that particular
Well,
case,
it
if
also
you're,
might be a red flag though for the seller too. They say, look, I'm gonna be out in 30 days, I'm not.
oh yeah, this has to be agreed to.
$100 and-
Every one of these are amendments that need to be agreed to by both parties. And yeah, if they don't have somebody who's buying their house, because this is a domino, we are not, in most cases, we're not in a first-time buyer market in Troy. So somebody's buying a house that has a house that they're selling. And so they need you to get out so they can get out for their buyer. And that goes down one more level. That person needs to get out so that seller of that house can move. So it gets to be complex. Buyer and seller agree that the following repairs will be done. The light in the dining room will be repaired. The closet door in the master bedroom will be replaced. The hardwood floors in the living room will be resanded. And the electrical work in the garage will be completed. All of those are okay, but it doesn't have a timeline, right? And it doesn't have a what if. And it can be done by Bob, your next door neighbor, who doesn't know anything about anything. But yeah, he'll wire it up for you. Yeah. So.
Some of that's pretty vague too.
Oh yeah. Closet door in the master bedroom will be replaced. Okay, that's pretty.
Electrical work in the garage.
Yeah.
Could be lots of things.
Yes. Yeah, but you don't read each other's minds. You want to point out exactly what it is to be done, who is to do it, when it's supposed to be completed, and what happens if it's not. So these 5 W's are pretty good. 5 W's, next time you're doing a clause, you would say, okay, I need to make sure that this happens. Now this is a good one. The seller has to fix the sewer line. It is dumping raw sewage everywhere. Actually, seen it. Well, not a good amendment. Okay? Yeah, seller has to repair the sewer line from the home to the street by a reputable plumbing company prior to close. In the event it is not done by that time,
She just told us.
buyer has the right to delay closing until such time that it's done. So that would cover that. In some cases, they will simply write down the seller will provide the purchaser with $3,500 towards closing costs and prepaid items. So that's the easy way if the buyer doesn't insist on having it done. The reason that I would want to do that as a seller, I'll give you an example. I had a house for sale, pretty upscale home in Troy. And have some more coffee, Dan.
I know, I should be honest.
So there was some loose vinyl, and this is a fairly big house, and it's pretty high up. I mean, I'm on the peak of a Tudor, and yeah, that was the only item that we wanted to have done because it was going to fly off. In fact, we were surprised it hadn't flown off. So he says, hey, I'd like to have them fix that. I said, that's certainly appropriate. I said, what I would think I would do is, get a financial, just get $300 off, that's, and you can take care of it. No, I want this guy to fix it. And I can understand that, it's a pain to find somebody. Well, he fixed it, all right. He took a hammer and put 3 nails in it, and it's the most ugly thing in the world. Well, I fixed it. It's no longer doing that. See? Now the guy that wasn't gonna stop the closing, but he's pretty pissed off. You know, yeah. Or, I had this happen in Beaver Trail. So, and then I went over there, and this is a pre-listing appointment. And I said, all right, hey, listen, here's the situation. You need to repaint this room and make sure you hit the, it had a cross beam that was wood, ugly wood. If you got wood in your cross beams, I'm not saying anything, making no comment. This was particularly ugly. He needed to paint it. He needed to paint that. And then I told him he had a beautiful cedar deck off the back. And I told him he needed to power wash that. Well, you know, so he thought, okay, well, good. That's all I need to do. I said, yeah, well, you know, clean up a little bit, you know, would be helpful. But yeah, you got to do that. I mean, that's going to help you in terms of, you know, increasing your money that you get for it. So I went back about a week later. He was so excited. He was, you know, obviously not a handyman. And he had painted it. It was horrific. I mean, first of all, he didn't power wash the cedar deck. He painted it with a cheap, flat, white paint.
Oh.
Interior. Oh.
Yeah, I don't even know. I mean, it was like, I'm like, oh my God. I walked in, I'm like, oh my God. And the paint was like this. That beam was painted all right, but you know, no skill whatsoever, you know. So I learned then, you know, I need to know what is your painting skill. Have you ever painted before? I'd have asked that question. I'd have said, here's a couple of painters that would do this for you. So who, what, where, why, when, and what if, and any other W you can think of, make sure it's included in that. Another issue that I want to talk about, a lot of people have asked, hey, can I have my own corporation and just be paid? You must be a broker for that, okay? But yeah, a lot of brokers will start a Chapter S corporation, and the advantage you have with that is that you don't have to pay self-employment tax when you're paid by the corporation. That's the biggest advantage. Self-employment tax in Michigan is like 13.2%, right? Because you're paying both. You're paying your side as well as the employer side, so they get you. My wife did that and saved about $20,000 a year, just in self-employment taxes. Yeah. So.
Is that only through the S corporation, or is that for an LLC also?
For an LLC, I suppose. I don't want to give that type of advice. You know, that's talk to your accountant.
No, I think LLC.
Well, you have to be a broker anyway.
LLC is just pass-through taxation, so it's just like if you were on your own anyway.
Yeah, I think
It just
yeah, I think
gives
it
you
is.
liability
It
protection.
has to be a Chapter S. She has to, you know, have officers and all that other stuff. Next, you can take all your CE credits in the third year. No, you can't. The law requires you take 2 Con Ed credits of legal every year. Okay, that's the one thing that you have to do. Typically, yes, you could take 18 hours in your third year, but that still won't satisfy the state. They want you to take 2 hours each year of legal.
Is that what we're gonna get?
We get everything, yep. If you take it through us, you'll have 18 hours exactly, and you'll have 6 hours of legal. And we keep track of it for you. We send it to the state. Okay. Closing on or before. Okay, you get that situation. Closing on or before is on our contract. So it is, or it's a targeted closing date in our contract, right? A targeted closing date is designed to give us a target, both parties, to shoot for. If you are unable to meet that target closing date, you are not out of contract. Okay, you just aren't. I mean, that's a big misnomer or a big mistake that a lot of agents make, and that is they think that, well, I'm out of contract now. You know, we're not going to sell it to you. Yeah, you are. You're not out of contract. You are. If they are literally attempting to get approved and are within that timeline. Now, remember what that timeline is. In paragraph 2, they have a conventional mortgage to apply within 7 days, right? And to be completed within 40, okay? As long as they're within that 40 days, you have no choice. Now, With that being said, if it gets beyond 40 days, if you've got the purchaser, you want to arbitrarily extend that deadline, so don't lose sight of that. Our contract allows you to do so. And you would write an amendment to the contract saying that purchasers request that the closing be extended by another 12 days due to additional information being requested by the mortgage company. All right, title companies can issue commission checks directly to the broker's salespeople at closing. No, they have to pay the broker. Okay, remember that. You will have an opportunity. For instance, when somebody will not do you right, a buyer will buy a house from someone else. You'll have them under a buyer agency contract. This will happen. If it hasn't happened to you yet, it will. And they'll say to you, well, you know what? I know you leave here that, well, there might be a little issue with the title company too. But let's go work through this and so on. So they now come to an agreement based on a shortage on the appraisal, and they're still moving forward with the sale. We're now 45 days into the transaction. Am I right? Yeah, so I'm 45 days in. My poor buyers at some point need to move into this house or something, right? Now we find out that, yeah, you know what, it might not be as easy as all that. The other party, one of the parties lives out of state, and maybe there was a little animosity between the two siblings, and maybe. Now we're 60 days into this.
I think it's 50s.
Yeah, it's in the 50s.
Yeah.
We're 50 days into this, and the buyers say, "Hey, I got to buy the house. I can't continue to hold on." Because we were all, it's a good deal. So of course the buyer wants to hold on as long as they can. They may not be able to find anything as nice at that price, so they understand the importance of doing that. But just totally misled, either intentionally or just because the other agent did not do the background check in terms of whether they should have listed the house in the first place. Yeah, we're not going to close on this house. I don't think, are we?
No, we're going to pull out now.
Yeah, pulling out. So starting all over. So now I'm the buyer. I've now got a $250, $350 appraisal. I got a $250, $350 inspection. So I'm out $600, $700. Now I need to get that money back. At least, at the very least, they should be willing to do that. Stay tuned. We will let you know.
So
You
you're gonna
aren't by any chance going to do a written example of what I should write on that?
I could do that for you. Yeah, I could do that for you.
So you're gonna ask the sellers to refund them the money?
Yeah, if we're gonna bail on this, I can appreciate that, and I'm sorry that you're having problems, but we entered into this agreement in good faith and with the expectation that you could actually sell this house.
Yeah.
So I've got $600, $700 out.
What do you think your chances are?
I'd say better than 50%. Usually there's understanding on the part of the seller. They're usually mortified and embarrassed, and oh my gosh. Not all though. Hey man, no, I'm sorry, but I'm not getting paid either. So we'll see.
I have paid for the inspections,
Yeah,
unfortunately, out of my pocket.
yeah. I'm not suggesting we do that.
Unfortunately, it's just feeling bad for this
Oh, yeah.
buyer.
Yeah. Yeah, you've been in the business long enough, you unfortunately do get nicked here and there and there and there. It just does happen. I always got nicked on inspections.
Me too.
And at a certain point in time, and I'm filming this, so I'm making sure that, so at a certain point in time, there's an investment of time that you weigh against a financial outlay. So in other words, what we're talking about is if you have a situation in which, the buyer's not going to pay anymore, the seller's not going to give anymore, and there's a $90 item that needs to be resolved. You're faced with the issue of, okay, I can put Carl in my car for another month and a half, spend every Saturday with him, finding another house, or I could pay $90 and we'll be done. And as much as I like Carl,
so much.
but as much as I like Carl, I like my granddaughter a little bit more, and I'd rather spend time with her than him. So
Take it off your taxes.
So that's what you mean.
That's right.
So that's what you mean when you say mix.
Yeah.
You're actually taking on
Yeah.
a little bit of that cost just to get it closed.
Yeah, to get it closed. Yeah. And let's face it, in an environment that is, if not adversarial, certainly not necessarily in walking step with each other, meaning buyer trying to get it for the best price they can get it, and the seller trying to get their best price on it, you're naturally involved in a relationship that is not necessarily harmonious, right? With that being the case, your negotiation skills will really come in handy as it relates to these transactions. I would say that is probably one of the most important things you can define is learn how to negotiate. And if you do that, you'll be good. You learn the market and then you negotiate well. Then of course you're just a pleasant personality and everybody wants to be around you. So that combination is pretty irrepressible and irresistible. So, anything else? Guys, good? Any issues you've had in the last week or two that you need to hammer out with all the other agents here?
I have something I'd like you to look over that I totally don't understand.
Okay.
As far as a letter of intent that a broker sent to me
Okay.
with some different options, and I'm just, he's saying it's a win-win thing, but I don't see the win-win.
Yeah, sometimes it's a win. Sometimes it's a win-win, but it's all for one person. Yeah. So a letter of intent is used in a lot of the commercial applications in which what the potential buyer is doing is outlining the terms under which they would purchase the home. It is legally enforceable. Most people don't realize that. Yeah, it is. If it's signed by both parties, it's more than simply a empty promise. So. All right, we're done.
Could you give an example of them?
Yeah, I'm going to, I'm selling my house. I have a 12-unit apartment building, and I want to sell it. Well, the buyer says, okay, here's what I want to do. I want to give you a letter of intent. I would pay $850,000 for it. I have a 60-day due diligence period. I want to make sure that, I want to build onto the land, so I want to do a soil sample. You have to do a level 1 environmental for any of those anyway, unless you're buying a land contract. If you're going after a loan, you have to do that. So there's a lot more to it than simply, I am buying the single-family home and I'm moving in 30 days or a week if it's cash. There's environmental, there's all kinds of things. Now, everybody should know that one of the dirtiest sites are dry cleaners, right? I mean, that is just generally considered contaminated soil. Based upon what they use in the back and the disposal methods and so on and so forth. So a letter of intent would identify, I want a 60-day letter or 60-day due diligence period. I will pay you $25,000 down, and the rest will be in either a cash or in a mortgage instrument to be applied with a date of closing of August 1st, 2017. I have the opportunity to go through and inspect every unit, all 12 units. So it'll outline.
Why wouldn't all that just be put in the purchase price?
Well, you know what? That's a good question. I'm not sure that I'm that much of an expert. I just know that that's generally a methodology that's used quite often in the commercial world.
Mostly in commercial.
Yes, only in commercial. Yeah. But that's a good question. I should probably call the legal hotline and find that out. I am taking the
Is that
commercial
mostly for
class.
sale of commercial versus
Even leases?
Even leases?
Yes. Yeah. Leases can be quite detailed as well. So when you get to the leasing point, then they move that instrument from a letter of intent to an actual lease. Yes.
So we can do leases on commercial, can't we?
Yeah, you can. You're able to. Can you? Yes. Should you? I'm not sure. Quite honestly, it's pretty detailed.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, they have escalator clauses. What's the escalator clause?
Well, that's when you refer the client to the buyer.
Exactly. Yeah. The best people that do commercial are doing exactly that. They're taking, Jack, for instance, will sell a $6 million strip mall. His attorney or not his attorney, the buyer's who gets an attorney, drafts everything. Seller has their attorney review it. Jack is the intermediate that gets them together and helps negotiate some of the fine points of the contract. They finally draft one agreeable to both parties, and he walks out with $300,000. So it's not a bad deal.
Nope.
So he's the big commercial guy in the office.
Jack. All right, guys.
Yeah.